never thought a slap could echo for 12 years, but hers did. Even now, when the house is quiet, I still feel it not on my skin, but somewhere deeper, somewhere I didn't know a person could bruise. My name is Maylin, and for 12 years on the 3rd of every month I transferred $2,000 into my mother-in-law's account. Rain or shine, sick or healthy, employed or between jobs, $2,000 without fail until the one month I couldn't. That month, she slapped me in front of my own son. And I slapped her back. I want to tell you how it happened, not to justify it, not to make myself the hero of this story, because there are no heroes here, just tired people, doing their best, breaking under weight they never agreed to carry. It started the year I married her son, David. I was 26, bright-eyed, maybe a little naive, believing that love could smooth over any difference. David's mother, Grace, had raised him alone after his father left when he was 9. She never remarried. She worked 2 jobs, a seamstress by day, cleaning offices by night, just to put him through college. When David told me about his mother's sacrifices, I cried. I remember thinking, this is a woman who deserves to be taken care of. This is a woman I want to honor. So when David suggested, gently, almost apologetically, that we send his mother some money each month, just to help her retire, just to ease her burden after everything she'd given, I didn't hesitate. Of course, I said. She raised you by herself. It's the least we can do. I meant it. I want you to understand that. I meant every word. The first year, it was $1,000 a month. We were young, our combined income was modest, but we made it work. Grace would call to thank me, always me, never David, her voice syrupy sweet over the phone. Maylin, you're such a good daughter-in-law, better than a real daughter. I used to hold on to those words like a warm cup of tea on a cold morning. Better than a real daughter. I didn't have a mother of my own. She passed when I was 19, so those words filled something in me I didn't know was empty. But somewhere along the way, the warmth started to curdle. It was subtle at first, a comment here, a comparison there. My friend Wanda's daughter-in-law sends $1,500, Grace mentioned once, stirring her tea, not even looking at me. And Wanda doesn't even have grandchildren yet. I remember glancing at David, waiting for him to say something. He just stared at his plate. The next month, we raised it to $1,500. 2 years after that, after David got his promotion, after we bought our first small house, after our son Kevin was born, Grace sat us down at her kitchen table, poured 3 cups of chrysanthemum tea, and said without any preamble, I think $2,000 a month is fair now. You're both doing so well. I laughed, actually laughed, thinking she was joking. She wasn't. David squeezed my hand under the table, a silent plea. Please, Maylin, just agree, keep the peace. So I did, because that's what I always did. I kept the peace. I smiled at family dinners while she picked apart my cooking, my parenting, the shape of my eyebrows. I nodded when she called Kevin, a bit slow, because he took longer to walk than the neighbor's baby. I said nothing when she implied more than once that I'd trapped her son into marriage. $2,000 a month, and my silence. That was the price of peace in that family. For 10 years, I paid it. Every 3rd of the month, like clockwork. I set a reminder on my phone, a little chime that used to make my stomach clench before I even understood why. Some months it meant skipping my own doctor's appointments. Some months it meant telling Kevin we couldn't afford the school trip, watching his small face fall, and feeling something inside me fall right along with it. David never seemed to notice how much it cost me, not just the money, but the erosion, slow and constant, like water wearing down stone. He worked long hours at his firm. He came home tired, distant, grateful when I handled his mother's arrangements, as he called them, like she was a business account and not a woman who whittled away at my self-worth one comment at a time. I used to tell myself, she's alone. She sacrificed everything for David. This is what family does. I believed that, I really did, until the month everything changed. It was March. Kevin had just started having severe stomach pains, the kind that made him curl up on the bathroom floor, pale and sweating. We rushed him to the emergency room twice in 10 days. The diagnosis, when it finally came, was a burst appendix that had gone unnoticed for too long. Emergency surgery. 5 days in the hospital. Then follow-up visits, medication, a specialist because of complications. The bills piled up faster than I could process them. David's insurance covered most of it, but not all. Between the copays, the time I took off work unpaid to sit by Kevin's hospital bed, and the fear, the fear of almost losing my son, I forgot. I actually forgot the third of the month. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't rebellion. It was a mother who hadn't slept in 4 days, whose hands still trembled every time she thought about how close she'd come to losing her only child. I remembered on the 6th, 3 days late. I transferred the money immediately, my hands shaking for an entirely different reason now, and I called Grace to apologize, to explain about Kevin, about the hospital, about the blur those 2 weeks had become. She didn't let me finish. 3 days, she said, her voice flat and cold in a way I'd never heard before. 3 days, Malin. Do you know how that makes me look? I told Wanda you never miss a payment. Never. And now you make me a liar. Grace, I'm sorry. Kevin was in the hospital. He had emergency surgery. Everyone has excuses, she cut in. Everyone always has a reason when it's convenient. I remember standing in my kitchen, Kevin asleep upstairs finally, still weak, still healing, and feeling something in my chest crack clean in half. My son almost died, I whispered, and you're worried about what Wanda thinks. There was a silence on the line, a silence I should have recognized as a warning. Come over, Grace said instead. Now we need to talk about this face to face. I shouldn't have gone. Looking back, every instinct in my body told me not to go. But some old, obedient part of me, the part that had spent a decade keeping the peace, still answered to her voice like a bell being rung. I brought Kevin with me because I had no one to watch him. He was still weak, still recovering, wrapped in his favorite blanket in the back seat, asking me in a small voice why Grandma sounded so angry on the phone. She's not angry at you, baby, I told him. Never at you. I didn't know, driving there, that I was about to learn exactly how wrong that promise would turn out to be. Grace's house smelled the way it always did, like sandalwood incense and boiled herbs. She opened the door before I even knocked, as if she'd been standing there, waiting, counting the minutes since my car pulled into the driveway. She looked at Kevin first. For half a second, something in her face softened, some old grandmotherly instinct, buried under the years, still alive. Go sit in the living room, sweetheart, she told him. Grandma has cookies on the table. Kevin shuffled off, still moving slowly, one hand pressed against his side out of habit. I watched him go, and something in me wanted to call him back, to scoop him up, to drive us both far away from whatever was about to happen in that kitchen. I should have listened to that feeling. The moment Kevin was out of earshot, Grace's face changed. It hardened into something I'd seen flashes of before, but never fully, never aimed directly at me like a blade. Do you have any idea, she began, her voice low and shaking, what it's like to be pitied? Wanda called me last week. Called me to say how proud she was that I raised such a reliable family. And then this month I have nothing to tell her, because you decided your problems were more important than your word. Grace, I kept my voice as steady as I could, though my hands were trembling at my sides. My son had emergency surgery. He almost died. I was living at a hospital, not checking my phone for payment reminders. You always have a reason, she said again, that same phrase, sharp as a slap even before it became one. Do you know what I sacrificed for David? Do you know what I gave up so he could have a life? And this is what I get. A daughter-in-law who forgets me the second things get difficult. I didn't forget you, I said, and I could hear my own voice cracking now, the exhaustion of the last 2 weeks finally spilling out. I have given you $2,000 every single month for years. I have never once complained. Not when it meant Kevin couldn't go on his class trip. Not when it meant I skipped my own doctor's visits. I gave you everything you asked for, and the one time I was late, because my son was in the hospital, you're standing here talking about what Wanda thinks. Don't raise your voice at me in my own house. I'm not raising my voice. I'm asking you to understand. Understand? Her laugh was brittle, humorless. You want me to understand. You, who show up 3 days late and expect gratitude for eventually paying what you owe. Something about the word owe struck me like ice water. Oh, as if it had never been a gift, never been love, never been the honoring of a woman who raised her son alone. Oh, as if I were a debtor who'd finally missed a payment to a creditor who'd been waiting for an excuse. I don't owe you anything, I said quietly. I chose to help you. Every month for 10 years I chose it, out of respect, out of love for the sacrifices you made for David. But you are speaking to me like I've committed a crime against you. You disrespected me, she snapped. In front of everyone. Wanda, the neighbors, my whole social circle. This isn't about respect, I said, my voice finally breaking, all the exhaustion and fear and grief of the past 2 weeks rising up at once. This is about my son almost dying, and you making it about money. I don't know what specifically triggered it. Maybe it was the word money, spoken with something like disgust, as if I'd cheapened her suffering by putting a number on it. Maybe it was simply years of built-up resentment finding a crack to escape through. But before I could brace myself, before I could even process what was happening, her hand came across my face. The sound of it was louder than the pain. A sharp crack that seemed to hang in the air of that quiet kitchen for a full second before the sting even registered. I stood there, stunned, my cheek burning, my ears ringing faintly. 12 years of swallowed comments, of quiet humiliations, of $2,000 a month and a smile I didn't feel. All of it seemed to collapse inward, folding into that single moment. And then, from the living room doorway, I heard a small voice. Mommy. Kevin was standing there, a cookie forgotten in his hand, his eyes wide with something I never wanted my son to know at 8 years old, the specific fear of watching an adult he trusted hurt his mother. Something in me went very still, very cold. I don't remember deciding to do it. I remember my hand moving, fast, almost outside my own control, and then the same sound, crack, echoing back at her. Grace staggered half a step, her hand flying to her own cheek, her eyes wide with a shock that mirrored my own. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The kitchen clock ticked. Somewhere outside, a car drove past. Kevin had gone silent in the doorway, and I turned to him first, because he mattered more in that instant than any words Grace or I could throw at each other. Kevin, baby, go wait in the car. I'll be right there. He hesitated, looking between the two of us, before he nodded and disappeared toward the front door, his small footsteps quick and uneven. When I turned back to Grace, she was staring at me like she was seeing me, really seeing me, for the first time in 12 years. How dare you, she whispered. How dare I? My voice was shaking now, but not with fear. With something that had been buried so long I barely recognized it as my own anger, finally surfacing. You slapped me in front of my son who almost died 3 weeks ago, and you're asking how dare I? I am your elder. You are not my mother, I said, and the words came out clearer than I expected, cutting through years of obligation like a blade finally finding its mark. I loved you like one. For 12 years I tried. I gave you money I couldn't always spare. I gave you my silence when you insulted me. I gave you my patience when you compared me to women who never had to bury their own mother at 19 and still show up smiling to your dinner table. But I will not give you my son's fear. Not for $2,000, not for anything. She opened her mouth, some retort forming, but I didn't wait to hear it. I walked out of that kitchen, out of that house, and I didn't look back. The drive home was silent except for Kevin's small voice from the back seat, asking quietly, "Are you okay, Mommy?" "I'm okay, baby," I told him, and for the first time in a long time I almost believed it. That night I told David everything. Every detail, the money, the slap, the word, oh, that had cracked something open in me I didn't know was still closed. I expected him to defend her. Some old, tired part of me braced for it, the way you brace for a blow you've felt before. But he didn't. He sat very still at our kitchen table, his face pale, his hands clenched in his lap. And when he finally spoke, his voice was rough with something I hadn't heard from him in years. "She hit you," he said, not a question. A fact he was forcing himself to absorb. In front of Kevin. He closed his eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Malin. I should have seen this happening, years ago. I let it happen because it was easier than fighting her, and I let you carry all of it alone. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything left to say that hadn't already been said, in one form or another, over the past decade. We stopped the payments. Not out of spite, not as punishment, but because something fundamental had shifted, some understanding that had finally, painfully, come into focus. That love without respect isn't love at all. It's a transaction dressed up in familiar language, and I had been paying it for far too long. Grace didn't call for weeks. When she finally did, it wasn't an apology. It was an accusation that David and I had abandoned her, that we'd chosen pride over family. David, gently but firmly, told her that respect wasn't optional, not even for family, and that the door would remain open whenever she was ready to acknowledge what had happened. It's been 8 months now. Grace has called twice, both times circling the apology without quite landing on it. I don't know if she ever will. I don't know if that door will ever really open again in the way it used to. But Kevin sleeps peacefully now, his appendix scar fading slowly into a thin white line, and when he asks about Grandma Grace, I tell him the truth, in words small enough for an 8-year-old to hold. That sometimes the people who raised us don't know how to let go of their pain. That loving someone doesn't mean letting them hurt you. That it's okay to walk away from a table, even a family table, if what's being served there is fear instead of love. I think about that slap sometimes. Both of them, hers and mine. I'm not proud of striking her back. I've turned it over in my mind 100 times since, wondered if there was a version of that day where I simply walked away instead. But I also know this. For 12 years, I gave that woman everything I had, believing silence was the price of peace. I know now that peace bought with silence was never peace at all. It was just a slower kind of breaking. And the day I finally broke back was the same day I finally started to heal.